Okay, so it's time to turn it over to Dave. And I have to say that it's a pleasure that he took this spot this week. It's always nice to have Dave present, especially because he has an eye to what teachers need and they're already doing. So that is really nice to have here as a voice. He has really bad taste in sports teams, as you may have noticed, but we're going to forgive that because he does bring us some great resources. And so I hope you all enjoyed the little Bitmoji cartoon on the advertisements this week. Haley is a master at coming up with really good pictures to go with our water coolers. And Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. I believe you can share your screen and take it away. Could you unmute though, Dave?
Yeah. How's that?
That would be great. Then we don't have to.
I don't think we've lost that much really, but I'll put the site that I'm going to use and I can just go through that. And so if you want to follow along or if you want to just check that, you can do however you would like. So let's see. Oops. Did that share okay? It's good? All right. So if I can, okay. So what I thought I'd do is take a couple of pauses as we go through. Maybe you might have some questions or some ideas. When I talked about doing this thing about Bitmoji, what I was really thinking about was I did a Bitmoji presentation for a class at Madonna University. I thought at the time that it would be kind of fun to do something with Globe. If there were some people, maybe after this happens, if people are interested in it, then maybe there's some resources that we could do for Globe and put those on that might be of value to teachers. So that was kind of my goal. So if you want to find this at some time, what I've done here is on my website here, you can just click on either ideas about teaching science or over here, the science ideas. This is a website that I've over the last month, I decided to kind of get back into podcasting. I had done podcasts and stuff, so that all that podcasting, but I think Jen knows, I don't know if anybody else, I was part of this group Science Explosion, and it was music and magic, and we have, over 100 songs, and we kind of let it just kind of slide by. So I thought I'd bring it back and kind of put our whole catalog online. So I'm working on that. And I might just mention, if I go over here to Science Friends, the first Science Friend that I put on there was the Globe program. So I want you to know that it was at the top of my list there. So either over here, you'll see Science Ideas, and that's where I thought I would start. And the way that this page is just set up right now, what I've tried to do is in this first part here is to kind of talk about Bitmojis themselves. And then in the middle here, I have a whole Bitmoji presentation that I did for the class, and I'll kind of go through it. But then at the bottom here are 3 different resources for Bitmojis. This one on the left here, teachers are creating incredible Bitmoji classrooms for their students. And it's nice because they have lots of examples and ideas. Another one, I like this one in the middle here from Board Teachers, how to make your own Bitmoji classroom in 10 easy steps. And that's a really nice, easy resource to use. And then this one over here is a YouTube video on making a Bitmoji classroom. And one of the nice things about it, oh, I'm surprised it's actually looking pretty good. It's nice here because if it's all timed so that you can go to different parts of it. So if you're interested on certain parts about, how to put furniture in there and so on, it's pretty easy to jump around. So that's kind of how this page is set up if you'd like to look at it. So it kind of in background information, one of the things, if some of you use Bitmoji, might use them or they've been real familiar with them, but they're defined as a personalized cartoon avatar. So it's one of yourself. A lot of us use different kinds of emojis and Bitmojis on our phone and stuff. So what they've done is to put those into a classroom. And I know they've been pretty popular in elementary classrooms where a lot of teachers have made a Bitmoji of themselves and then actually take their whole classroom and put that into the background. So when kids actually are looking at the screen, they're actually seeing their own classroom. And so they can put lots of resources there. And so they kind of have their teacher, and you'll see it as I go through some examples. Thing I put up in that first paragraph is being a Mac guy, I kind of fought against using Google Slides, but it was really much better to use Google Slides for all of this. Although I'm presenting it in Safari right now, the development is all in Google Slides. Just makes it a lot easier. And also using Google Chrome. The Google products make it much easier. And so what I did was I made this presentation for a friend's class that he was teaching at Madonna University in Livonia, and it was part of an asynchronous meeting. And the goal of the meeting was to help students understand the next generation standards, get a little bit of an overview on the next generation science standards. But secondly, we wanted them to become all trained as Globe teachers, so that there were 10 students in the class, all of them became Globe teachers. And also that there's a lot of resources that can be used to implement the next generation science standards. And the ones that I was focusing on was the Globe program, NASA resources, and then the project that I'm involved in, NASA's Aaron project. And for fun, I wanted to expose them a little bit to the songs from Science Explosion, that they might want to use those songs in their classroom. And then finally observe and participate in a Bitmoji classroom if they weren't familiar with it or had no experience. So with all of that, let me just stop and see if anybody has any questions or if there's anything in chat, Jen, that you wanted to mention.
Nothing in the chat, but does anybody have any questions so far? All right.
All right. Which makes me realize just the other day we got into wait time. Raise your hand if you remember wait time when you ask a question, right? And anybody know who came up with the concept of wait time? The woman's name was Mary Bud Roe. That name familiar to anybody? People I can see. And with somebody, and I had seen her when she first came up with this theory at Eastern Michigan University. She came and did a presentation, and I always remember that. And I had just told somebody that she had died like a year or two before, and they were always like Mary Bud Roe. And then I looked it up, and she had died in 1994, so it was really 26 years, not a year or two. But I digress. So let me go into that presentation. So this was the title of the presentation, the NGSS and the resources used to implement. And what this is a whole Google slide presentation, as you'll see it, and then I just embedded it onto the website. And the Bitmoji that you see here these are all made up. I don't make up any of these. But what I did do was myself. All I used was on my iPhone. I downloaded the Bitmoji app, made a Bitmoji. You actually take a photo of yourself first on the phone, and then you make all these changes, make whatever you want. But if you use a Bitmoji as a keyboard, like in the phone, you can paste your Bitmoji into any kind of text message. And what you can do is just put in a word like welcome, and it'll develop a whole bunch of Bitmojis that have the word welcome or something like that in there. So when you see welcome, I didn't make that. All right, that was the app, because I made the Bitmoji of myself and then put in the word welcome and it made that for me. And then also, the other thing that you have to do is when you're putting a Bitmoji into a Google slide, you need to use the Bitmoji extension. And in Chrome, I don't know if you use extensions or not in Chrome. I hadn't really used those before. Is I was just able to download the Bitmoji extension for Chrome, and you can just Google that, although it's in all the steps and those little resources down below. And you put that resource in. So as I'm working, I can just click on the extension, and then it'll list all the extensions that I have. One's Bitmoji. And when I click on Bitmoji, it does the same thing. It allows me to put in a word and then to make Bitmojis. Then all I do is to cut and paste. So here is just a Google slide, just like you would make any other slide. And then I added a graphic, and that graphic that I added was the Bitmoji. Any Bitmojis or making those?
Can you repeat that question, Dave? Because you sort of, maybe it's just me, but you cut out a little bit.
Oh, yeah. What was the question? Oh, I said, any questions about Bitmojis at all before I go into the slides? Okay, so here's the presentation that I talked about. And those were all of the things that I talked about. Again, we gave this to students, and they were just able to access this anytime they wanted to. And so I put the goals down, and then I put in a Bitmoji there. And then this was the requirements for the class. Everybody had to become as a Globe teacher, and then write a summary of the different kinds of resources that supported NGSS that are provided by NASA, Globe, Aaron, and so on. And again, there's the Bitmoji down there, just to get word requirements, and it made that one. The next slide is just some background for them about Bitmojis. And then this was the first slide that I used where I made it kind of a classroom. And the first thing that I did was to make the walls and the floor. And all that you have to do is when you go, if you're using Google Slides, you know that you can add an image. Well, all you have to do is ask for a wall and a floor, and it'll give you all kinds of walls and floors. And all you do is to download, just insert a wall and a floor and put that in. And then the easiest thing is, if you have a classroom that you want to keep a certain way, just copy and paste it into multiple slides so you don't have to keep adding a wall and a floor to it. And the other thing that's helpful is, like, I wanted to add a desk. So all I had to do was, just like I would in Google Slides, I would insert an image, and that image I would do a Google search for, and the Google search would be for a desk. But one of the things that works out well is and you'll see in the information below, is to use the word transparent in front, and a transparent desk. And that way it fits a lot nicer into the whole kind of setup here. And so that graphic you see of chemists, the beakers and graduated cylinder, is just a Google image that I downloaded, and I could just move that around anywhere. Also, when you'll see that I'm sitting on a chair. What you do is that a lot of the Bitmojis, some are standing, some are jumping, some are sitting. So you just find one that fits, and I put myself on a little chair there. So if I was in Google Slides, I could move any of these pieces around that you have. The other thing that I did is, you'll notice all of those pictures on the wall, those rectangles. Right? And so if we do like the NASA one, we should do the globe program. Well, I notice a little bit of the borders missing. It's just a white rectangle. It's a rectangle filled with white. And then I put a black border around it. And then what I do is to just grab an image of the globe program and then paste it in there. So it's an image on top of a rectangle. And then what I did, and they probably won't show well because videos don't. But when I click on this, I just did a link to our Glow program video, and that way I could make everything of some kind of value there. One that you can't click on is a family picture from last Christmas, and I'm not sure why I used that, but I thought it was cute. Yeah, I guess I had put it on one time and just left it. Same thing here. If I click on Science Explosion, that was just an item that I had, and I just put a song on that we had done. So they keep getting some idea. NASA, Aaron, and I forget his name. I was just talking about Montana does all of the good videos on NGSS. So this idea was just an overview. But the idea was these are, every one is a graphic, like this one here is a graphic of his video. Put the graphic in and then just make a link to it, just like I would in any kind of Google slide. And the next one that I did, it's the same idea. You'll notice that I put in a microphone here and I put in singing, and that's just me singing. And then I used a screen. I just found a screen in Google Slides, and I like the screen idea because it kind of drew their attention to it, that you look at something here, but you'll notice there's nothing to click on. These are just graphics on a table. And then I also like the idea of a board. There's many different ways that you could do it, but I could use this kind of idea throughout my slides. And so when you look at Science Explosion here, you can get the idea this is about songs, and each one of these is hyperlinked to a song that we did. And then when we go to NASA, these are the NASA resources. This was a picture from one of the meetings that they had. And so the NASA resources, My NASA Data, NASA Science, and NASA STEM, these are all links that way, at least they got some idea of what these resources were like. And it made it kind of a nice way to share some of those resources. And I like the flexibility of them being able to pick whatever it is that they like. This is the part about Globe. And this was, that was that nice video from Killarney. And that's always good to put on anything about Globe. So put it on, and then I asked them to email me notification, because sometimes when they do the e-training, there's sometimes a problem getting the certificate at the end. And so they just do a screenshot and send it to me and stuff. And then these were the directions. Again, this is just a rectangle with a black border around it and then text inside here. And so I was able to link to each of the protocol e-trainings that we wanted here. And so it made it nice that I didn't have to be, around to kind of show them the obvious. It was all built in, and it didn't seem to be much of a problem for anybody to find it. So everybody became a Globe teacher. And then for the next generation science standards, there's a little video here about the standards, how to read the standards. Next generation science. Although they've been learning about the standards in other parts of their class, but what I did have them do was to sign up for that NGSS newsletter that comes out each month, and then also now with NSTA, anybody can be a free member. You get limited resources, but I thought it was a good idea for them to sign up for that. And then for the Aaron project, this was our video from Globe that was done when we were flying kites on Belle Isle, and put in here the information. Again, these are just Bitmojis of myself that I can just put in and they show up. And this was a kite training video that we have. This is oops, I guess I hit the wrong one there. Whoops. Let's see. So yeah, so that was the Aaron project. And then at the end, hope that they enjoyed learning about that. So that takes them through all of that Bitmoji. So hopefully they could experience it and enjoy that some. And it got to what we wanted. I used to, in the past, I would always class and I would spend 3 hours there, and I would talk about the GLOBE program. We do some GLOBE activity, and introduce them to some NASA resources, and then they would do the e-training over the next week. But since there was no face-to-face contact, this allowed us to do basically the same thing. And we found most students took about 3 hours to complete everything, which would be a normal lab session is what they had. And so again, at the beginning of this is all about Bitmojis and what it was all about. And then the example of a Bitmoji asynchronous class project. And then down below, I mean, I just talked about it, but if you're interested in doing it, these resources down below are really helpful. Both of these two web resources in text form, and then the YouTube video. So let me stop at that point.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the first couple slides, you had a Bitmoji of yourself with the word requirements above it.
That one?
Yes. So is that one that you created, or is that one that's already made?
That's already made. Every
Okay.
Bitmoji was already made for me. And what I did is, yeah, so if you look at, I was just thinking I could show my, oh, yeah, because the odd thing, I guess I could with, no, I don't know if it'll show, but the idea is when you go to the extension and you open up Bitmoji, it will show you a whole bunch of Bitmojis, and then there's a space on top, like a search bar, and you put in any words you want. So you can put in like happy holidays, and it'll show you probably 10 Bitmojis of happy holidays or variations of happy holidays. If I put in requirements, there's some words you might put in, doesn't make you anything, but normally it does. So everything there, that's not like art text or anything that I put in there.
I have a question, Dave.
Yeah.
For something like this, is it like a slide-based thing, or is it interactive where students can kind of go in as you pointed and kind of touch things and open them up? And also, where would this be housed?
Yeah, one of the things, what I've done, this is off of the Google Drive, and I've just embedded it into my website. And well, let me do one thing first, and that was the question about, is it interactive? The way that I set it up, it's just going from slide to slide. But what you could do is you could hyperlink to other slides. All right, so I could go back and forth. Say if I had 20 slides, I could have a link back to slide 4, because that's the one thing. Like if I go to Owl Pellets here and I play that song, I can get lost if I don't just go back. So you could do some hyperlinks, and I could have like a little box down here, and I could say slide 10 or something else. So I could have it interact throughout there. What was the second part of that question again?
I asked about interaction, whether it was Google, like Google Slides or presentation, whether it's interactive, and where is it housed as well?
Yeah, when I did it with the students, I didn't have a website, and I had just made, because I couldn't really put it on like Reese's website or anything. So what I did do is I made this whole presentation in Google Slides, and then I downloaded it as a PDF, and then I sent it to them as a PDF. And so they all used it as a PDF. It would have been very easy if everybody had Google Drive, but I didn't know what their access was to Google Drive. One of the things that's very popular with teachers is this works very cleanly with Google Classroom, and so many of them use Google Classroom. Now, if you go through any kind of Google Drive, it's fine. But like I say here, I just used an extension to embed it to my website. Now what I would have done is that if I was giving this presentation this time, I would just give them the link to the website. And then they would go to the website And then they would have this, and they'd be actually working out of Google Drive. And one of the things I found with the PDF, sometimes it was harder to go back a slide. So I like this idea better. So just embed it into a website.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? This is a pretty cool thing. Like, I could see a hyperlinked agenda that looks much more interesting as a Google Slides with Bitmojis.
Well, we'd
That's
rather
really
see you.
clear.
We'd rather see you than your Bitmoji, of course. Let's just make sure we have that understood. But you know what a lot of teachers do it, and you can be so creative with it. If you had, like, let's just say you had 10 books in your classroom and you had those books on a table there. And well, you could even do it like with the music there. If I can just touch that book and hyperlink to that book and have it open up so the kids can read it. And that's what I say. A lot of people have taken photographs of their classroom, and then they're able to redo that classroom right in here. So kids are seeing their classroom, and I can have a box of materials. I can have games that I pick out. But I thought too, this would be a nice thing that people might like to work on and develop some resources for Globe. We might make it fun, particularly something like elementary Globe would be a blast to use with something like this. And to do different kinds of resources and have different kind of tools that were there. It's kind of a fun way. And it's probably like Zoom, maybe get tired of it like anything else, but it added some freshness.